Hello, students. Welcome to the exciting conclusion of Absolutism in England, Part 2. Or, Mr. Martyr, should we say lack of absolutism, because it looks like the kings are having a really tough time trying to be the ultimate leader in the country.
That's right, Mr. Walter. Rather than being called an absolute monarch, they're really going to end up just being called a limited monarch. Limited by what, Mr. Walter?
All kinds of things. The Magna Carta, Parliament. Eventually, we're going to see a Bill of Rights crop up in England. All kinds of things will limit the power of the king, where it had started out where the king had tried to get more power, like we saw happen in Spain and France.
Alrighty. Some of the problems in England
Is that they didn't have a king anymore because Parliament had killed Charles, if you remember that from part 1. So now we get to part 2, where England declares itself a republic, and they elect a leader instead of having a king, and that leader is Oliver Cromwell. Now, Oliver Cromwell has some problems. Problem number 1 is that the son of Charles, Charles II, wants to be king, and there are still some supporters out there for a king in England. Problem 2 is that there are Irish Catholics who do not like the Protestantism that Cromwell is promoting, and there's fighting there. Another problem, which we don't have written down, is that Cromwell is very strict. He shuts down bars, he shuts down theaters, he shuts down dance halls. There's no singing, no fun, no nothing. And there are also some poor people who want a say in their government, and they are called the Levellers. Now, when Cromwell dies, he ended up being so unpopular that Parliament doesn't want to elect another ruler again. And so what they do instead, and this is kind of ironic, is they actually invite Charles II back to being king.
And Charles II actually bears the nickname the Merry Monarch. They call him the Merry Monarch because he was in sharp contrast to Oliver Cromwell. And he did a great job at not angering Parliament, and he also does a great job at restoring a lot of things that Cromwell had stripped away, such as drinking and plays and all sorts of recreational things that happened in England.
Now, Mr. Martin, why do you think Charles II probably didn't want to anger Parliament?
Well, I think he saw what happened to his brother, Charles I. He saw his head get lopped off.
Well, when Charles II dies, he actually won't have an heir, so his brother James will become the new king. And James is not as scared of Parliament as Charles was. And James is going to do a lot of things. One, he's Catholic, and most of the country is Protestant, and so there's going to be some conflict there. James is also going to suspend laws and imprison people without Parliament's consent. And we remember, Parliament is a force that you shouldn't reckon with in England.
That takes us to what's called the Glorious Revolution, huge turning point in Great Britain's history. All right, Parliament gets fed up with James II. All right, so they invite James's daughter Mary and her husband William of Orange to come and rule England. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever heard of William and Mary before? Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. Well, if you guessed the College of William and Mary in Virginia, you're absolutely right. Home of President Thomas Jefferson, who went to school there. Just a fun little fact. As a result of the Glorious Revolution, James flees to France, and he stays there. Now, why is this called the Glorious Revolution, you ask? Well, the answer is because nobody dies. It's the first time that there's a peaceful transfer of power. Guys, that's the big takeaway point from Great Britain and this age of absolutism. We saw absolutism fail with Charles I, Charles II, and James II. Now with William and Mary, we're going to see a very peaceful revolution and a peaceful exchange to power.
Yes, when William and Mary take control of the country, we'll see a very powerful parliament with a very not so much powerful or weaker king ruling in England. And so this will be the beginning of the end for strong kings and queens in England, which where you get to even today, the king, the queen, the princes, they are more figureheads than actual people of power because of this attempt at absolutism and the kings failing at it. Again, if we've gone too fast, well, I'll let Mr. Martin say this. This is some of his favorite lines.
Thank you, Mr. Walter. If we've gone too fast, you can rewatch this video. Please make sure you have all the notes downloaded and you can complete this guide. This is Absolutism in England Part 2.